Hey guys, today we are going to be talking about Khaled Hosseini's And the Mountains Echoed. Okay, welcome to this deep dive into the first 3 chapters of Khaled Hosseini's book. And as you know, this guy, Hosseini, he's known for his ability to weave complex human emotions into the fabric of his narratives.
So before moving into the details of chapter 1 to 3, let's get to know the author a bit. Khaled Hosseini is an Afghan-American author known for his storytelling, of course. Most of his books, such as The Kite Runner and The Mountains Echoed, are focused on life in Afghanistan, exploring themes of family, redemption, and the impact of war.
And in this book, he takes us on a journey that is as much about the internal landscapes of his characters as it is about the physical ones they inhabit. Okay? So chapter 1, the introduction is the bond between Abdullah and his younger sister Pari. Okay? It is a bond that is both beautiful and tragic, setting the stage for the overarching theme of sacrifice that echoes through the novel. Abdullah's love for Pari is pure, almost parental, and Hosseini uses this relationship to explore the idea that love often requires painful sacrifices. This theme resonates beyond the text, reflecting the sacrifices we see in our own lives with our own siblings, whether it's in family dynamics or societal expectations. I must say the first 20 pages, they were a page turner. Okay, they were a page turner. They were talking about this old man named Baba Ayub and the struggles he went through against this, higher being called the Div, and he was forced to give away his own son to the Div. And later on in the book, it demonstrates that his paternal instincts told him that, you know what, enough is enough. I'm going to find the Div, I'm going to bring my son back. And I think that was the most touching and honestly the best hook a book could ask for, right? So as we move into the second chapter, the narrative shifts focus. Hosseini masterfully introduces us to Sabur, the children's father who is burdened by the harsh realities of life in a poverty-stricken village. Okay? His decision to give Pari away to a wealthy family in Kabul is heart-wrenching. Yet it is driven by a desperate need to ensure her survival. So even though they're both distraught by this decision, it was one that had to be made, right? Even though it was painful, this decision underscores the novel's exploration of the complexities of parental love. Hosseini invites us to reflect on the nature of sacrifice. How far would we go to protect those we love? Is it truly love if it demands a price? Okay. In the third chapter, we delve into the perspective of Parwana, which is Sabur's second wife. She harbors her own deep-seated resentments and insecurities. Her inner turmoil adds another layer to the novel's exploration of human complexity. Hosseini doesn't shy away from depicting the darker sides of his characters, reminding us that we're all human and we all carry our own burdens. Okay? We're all scarred by the stories that we've come across in our own life and the things that we had to go through, right? So this chapter asks us to consider how will our struggles, our traumas, shape the decisions we make, and how those decisions ripple out, affecting the lives of others in ways we might not foresee, even our loved ones. Hosseini's narrative style is both intimate and expensive, okay? Drawing us into the personal lives of his characters while also inviting us to reflect on broader universal themes. The mountains in the title symbolize the echoes of those sacrifices and decisions, reverberating through generations. As we conclude this exploration of the first 3 chapters, we are left with a profound understanding of the complexities of love, sacrifice, and the human condition. Okay? So, from what I've seen so far, I think that this book's strong points is definitely the way that it could convey the emotional stress of Baba Ayub, of Pari, of the dad. Whatever struggle everyone in this book was going through, it was just so cleverly depicted. And I think that, that was the best part of this book that I've not really seen in any other book except for The Kite Runner. which I so definitely read. Thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the discussion on chapters 1 to 3, and I'll be seeing you in chapters 4 to 6. Hello again, and now we're going to be talking about chapter 4 of And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini. And this was a very interesting chapter, a very different one as well. This chapter, if you're a fan of romance, it has a lot of it, and there's a very, very intense love triangle between Nabi, Neela, and Sulaiman. And it gets really intense in this part because Sulaiman and Neela are getting married, but Nabi immediately falls in love with Neela, and at the worst possible moment. And the whole subplot of Neela having, risky poems, that's very interesting as well. And it's a very interesting chapter that really delves deeper into the story and into the arcs of the characters we've come to know. I think that makes it a very worthwhile chapter in the book, and I do feel it's a very good experience, and it makes you really want to see where the story is going to go next, because it's just a very, very unique part of the story, and I personally cannot wait to get to chapter 5. And the plot thickens. Chapter 5 of And the Mountains Echoed. And things really do get dark really, really quick. So the year is 2003, and we're following our main characters now. Idris and Timur, these are the main characters of this chapter, and they're going from California to their hometown. And it's really dark because this is right after the war. And they meet a nurse called Amra and a little girl named Roshi, and it's told that Roshi's whole family was murdered by her uncle. That's really dark, and they just have to deal with that. And her only guardian is her other uncle, and he mentions how he's the victim because he's gonna have to take care of Roshi, the girl. And that's just kind of messed up because her whole family got killed, and her only guardian left thinks of her as a burden. It's just a really dark, I've said this a lot, it's a really dark chapter, and it really delves into the negative sides of humanity, how selfish we are, and how much we prioritize ourselves over others, and all the horrible things we have the power to do if we are so inclined. And it really gets to you. It really gets to you because you feel for these characters. You feel for them when you hear their backstories, you hear all the trauma-inducing events they had to go through. It really gets to you, and I think that makes chapter 5 pretty special as well. It keeps adding more and more to the story. With each chapter, it keeps delving deeper and deeper into the human condition as a whole. And I really do believe that chapter 5, it's pretty good. Abuse, self-harm, and suicide. Chapter 6 has it all. And I remember in the last review how I mentioned that this is where the plot gets darker. This is where things get dark. This is where things get serious. No. Khaled Hosseini, he said no. This is the chapter where I make it happen. You see what happened in chapter 5? That was nothing. Because this is where it gets really serious, and they kill off, spoiler alert, they kill off one of the main characters in the book. And it's a brave decision. That's a brave decision. Most readers, I do believe, with most books, immediately when you see like a main character, a fan favorite, just die. The character that you've grown to know, that you've watched grow, and you've seen them develop, you've seen them, how they interact with people, their lives and everything. Once you see all of that just thrown away, and in such a dramatic manner as well, it's intense. This really is the chapter where things get serious, and we get to see the descent into Neela making that decision. And it's not a nice ride, but it is a very gripping one. Khaled Hosseini makes sure of that. You don't want to look away. It's like watching a car crash. You just can't look away, even if you wanted to. You just gotta keep reading, because this is where it gets really, really, really twisted. And we get to see all of this from Pari's point of view. We get to see it from her point of view, and The main three characters in this chapter are Neela, Julian, and Pari. And we really get to see all of it. All of it. We get to see Neela talk about her past, the trauma she had to go through, and it's just really uncomfortable. Honestly, it's uncomfortable to read because of how real it all feels. It's something that you genuinely believe could happen in the real world, and that's what makes it scary, honestly. And even worse than that, we get to see the aftermath of Neela's decision of her suicide, and goodness, Khaled does not hold back, not at all. We get to see it all, and even if you don't want to, you get to see it all, and it really does. It just feels sad, right? Like we've been following this character for so long, throughout all the chapters 1 to 6, and now it's like she's just gone. She's gone. And it's not like an action book, you know, where she might just get revived later on. No, she's just gone. And yeah, this really was the chapter, you know, this was the chapter. And it really does make this book more unique. It makes it stand out more because not every author has the balls. Not every author has the balls to do that. So, good job, Khaled Hosseini.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our book vlogs. Today we're diving back into Khaled Hosseini's And the Mountains Echoed. And we're finally in the last 3 chapters, chapters 7, 8, and 9. After reading chapter 7, 8, and 9, I felt like I went through multiple emotional roller coasters. Trust me. If you guys have been reading along with us, then you might get exactly what I mean. But if you haven't, then grab a tissue box, strong coffee, you're in for a ride. So chapter 7, 8, 9 of this book, all 3 of them are packed with deep themes of family, personal identity, and the impact of generational choices, all intertwined with the political landscape of Afghanistan. Let's look through each chapter and their main points. Let's check what exactly happened and the morals of the chapters. Okay, so let's dive into chapter 7, summer 2009. It brings us into the middle of Afghanistan's turbulent history, starting in the late 20th century with shifts between their different regimes. It starts with the Mujahideen, the Taliban, and eventually US-backed leadership. Through the eyes of young Adele, we get a closer look on how these events unfolded and how they affected Afghan families on a very personal level. Adele, who is the son of a very powerful figure, sees his father as a hero in his family, the breadwinner. But then he eventually befriends Golam. And from then, he starts learning about the harsh truths about his family's role in all the turmoil. Golam, whose family was pushed off their land, tells Adele stories that allows him to see his father in a different light. I guess it's a very big moment for him since he's torn apart between the image of his father being the savior, the hero of the family, and the reality of what his father actually does in the name of power. This chapter shows us how fragile perceptions can be, especially with children who sees the world through the lens of their parents' actions. So, what's the main message of chapter 7? I believe that this chapter highlights the complex intersection between personal beliefs and political influence. It shows how over time children start realizing and getting to know the harsh truth about people that they once idolized. For Adele, it's definitely his father. He realizes the impact of his father's actions to Afghan families. I guess it's it's an awakening to the reality of both his father's actions and the broad history of his homeland. Okay, so moving on to chapter 8, it shifts to a completely different storyline. It now focuses on friendship, self-acceptance, and redemption. It follows Marcus and Thalia's friendship. Marcus is a photographer and a doctor, and Thalia is a woman with facial disfigurement. They meet in Greece, and their friendship is just so touching. It really illustrates how two people from completely different paths can be brought together by understanding and acceptance. So basically, Marcus has always had the freedom to reinvent himself and be creative, since he works as a photographer. On the other hand, Thalia hasn't had that privilege yet due to her appearance. Yet, she doesn't let that define her or limit her potential. She finds dignity in her own way and even declines his offer to perform reconstructive surgery on her face, showing that she's come to a place of self-acceptance. She learns to accept her flaws and actually just live with it, which is very fascinating. She's a very cool character. In the background, we also learn about Marcus's complicated relationship with his mother, which is quite similar to the tense mother-daughter dynamic between Mila and Pari Wahtati from the earlier chapters. However, where their relationship ends tragically, Marcus's and his mother's relationship finds peace and reconciliation. A beautiful, symbolic moment happens when Marcus sees rainbows dancing on his mother's skin during a solar eclipse. It's like a quiet, hopeful moment that contrasts with the sadness in Mila and Pari's story. I guess this chapter is mainly about embracing who you are and finding strength in your identity. It shows while some obstacles may be visible, like Thalia's disfigurement, they don't define her. Instead, it's her spirit and her resilience that shapes her life. Thalia, girl boss, we love her. Through the friendship of Marcus and Thalia, he also learns about compassion and the value of self-acceptance. I guess it also touches the topic of self-love and learning to accept your flaws and accept differences in between the people you connect with as well. So we finally reach the last chapter, which is chapter 9, where it brings everyone and everything together. This is the chapter where long separated families finally reunite, bringing the story into a full circle. Pari Wahtati, who was adopted and separated from her brother, Abdullah, decades ago, finally meets his daughter, also named Pari. Their reunion is powerful yet bittersweet. Abdullah has faded over time and lost many of his memories, yet when he meets Pari Wahtati, something within him stirs, like an echo of the past that's just out of reach. It's like fragments of his memory suddenly flashed through his mind when he met her. It's like a touching scene where family bonds come back to life, even if parts of the past may remain hazy or broken. It really just highlights how strong their bond was. Other than that, this chapter also delves into the importance of knowing one's origins. Pari Wahtati expresses and explains her feelings to her niece that understanding where you come from shapes your sense of self. Her journey across continents to reconnect with her family is both literal and symbolic. She's finally able to answer all the questions that have haunted her since childhood. And by doing so, she frees the younger Pari from the weight of family secrets and unhealed wounds. I guess it's like healing her inner child. I would like to add on that Pari's journey across continents to meet her roots is more than just reuniting with her lost family. I feel like it's more of an act of self-reclamation. It's as if all this time she's been searching for herself in bits and fragments, small moments or dreams she couldn't quite make sense of. By discovering her family and hearing her own history spoken out loud, she finally finds a version of herself that she wasn't even looking for. This journey wasn't just about reconnecting or finding the family members she was separated from, but I think it was more of piecing together her own identity, making it whole. So as I said before, chapter 9 brings us a full circle, illustrating themes of journey and how they're not about where you go, but where you come from. This reunion helps resolve the legacy of separation and silence that has followed the family, showing that while some things are lost to time, the bonds of family can still bring a sense of closure. And sometimes the family bond is much stronger than anything else.